On a neutral station, a single medical mistake can turn into a death sentence. A human soldier is dying under legal rules that forbid saving him. An alien doctor breaks the law anyway. And the moment his blood changes, the station does not ask why. It asks who gets to own him. Will he escape before the audit clock hits 0? The Cinderline transfer ring never stayed quiet for long. Freight slid through the arc in steady waves, hull lights blinking behind weld smoke. Somewhere in the structure, a compliance timer counted down to the next audit, and everyone behaved like paperwork could stop blood. Callan Voss woke on a medical bed, choking on antiseptic air and the taste of burned insulation. A thin band of energy pinned his right wrist and both ankles, not as punishment, but because the station classified humans as fragile. His ribs burned with every breath, and the burn kept getting worse. A wall display hovered near his head. It showed his file in clean text and colder meaning. Human. High fracture risk. Restricted interventions. Neutral Accord Council guidelines applied. Callan stared at the scrolling line that mattered most. Restricted interventions. He forced air into his lungs and felt fluid fight back. If the rules stayed in charge, how long would he last? Dr. Sarai NYM stood at his side, reading a lung scan that darkened by the second. Her skin carried a muted silver sheen. Her eyes were pale and steady, trained to stay that way even when the numbers did not. Do not move, she said. Your chest wall is unstable. Callan forced words out through pain. Where am I? Harkon's salvage yard, Sarai replied. Inside the transfer ring. Neutral zone. Callan asked. Sarai did not deny it. She looked at the scan again. Neutral until it becomes inconvenient. Boots rang on the deck outside the curtain. The sound was measured and official, close enough to be a threat. Warden Illerketh entered with the posture of a man who dislikes surprises. His armor carried the mark of the Cinderline Security Bureau. He looked at Callan the way you looked at mislabeled cargo. Terran Strategic Command, Keth said. Your presence raises liability. I am here because I got shot, Callan said. Keth's mouth barely moved. The Council requires strict limits on human treatment. No invasive intervention without oversight. No military pharmacology. Sarai kept. Her tone flat, but her hands tightened around the scan tablet. His lungs are filling, she said. Your limits will kill him. Keth met her eyes. And your improvisation will trigger an incident inside a trade artery. Callan stared past them, past the curtain edge, listening to the ring vibrate under another docking. He did not need a lecture. He needed a decision that kept him alive. How long? Callan asked. How long until the rules finish me? Keth answered without warmth. Until the audit clears or your body does. Chief Medic Ors Pell appeared behind Keth, pushing a cart of sealed supplies. His face looked like managerial exhaustion. He tapped a cabinet lock. The panel flashed a denial, then displayed the reason in plain words. The panel read, Human Protocol Lockout. Dr. NYM, Pell said low. Auditors are active tonight. Keep this bay quiet. He left a small amber case on a shelf, sealed with a foreign crest. Then he rolled the card away as if nothing had happened. The case sat close enough for Sarai to reach, and too close to pretend it was an accident. Callan watched Sarai's gaze linger on it. He recognized that look. A moment before crossing a line. What happened to my team? Callan asked. Sarai flicked a glance to a still image on the wall display. A torn airlock. Drifting cargo. No movement where there should have been voices. No other live signatures were recovered, she said. The ring vibrated again. Outside, welders screamed and cutters hissed. Inside, the clinic stayed sterile and wrong. Callan swallowed and stared at ceiling pipes. The restraints held him down like a decision already made. I have unfinished orders, he said. I need to live long enough to finish them. Sarai returned to the scan. The dark fluid shadow grew. Her hands hovered over the console, then dropped. The system would not let her do what was needed. Not without permission. Not without witnesses. Not without turning him into a case file. She looked once toward the corridor cameras, then back to the amber case. Stay still, she said, barely audible. If I do this, it will change everything. Callan held her eyes. Then do it, he said. Sarai broke the seal. Sarai opened the case with deliberate care. Inside were 3 vials nested in foam, their liquid nearly clear with a faint shimmer like heat. Haze. A label in trade script read Aegis Field Serum. Callan had heard rumors of alien combat medicine, always followed by the same warning. It kills humans. Sarai read the lot number twice. Her breathing stayed even, but her jaw tightened. This is not permitted, she said. If you do nothing, I die, Callan replied. If I do the wrong thing, you die faster, Sarai said. And I disappear to protect the system. A monitor chirped. Callan's oxygen dipped again. His body was losing the argument in real time. Sarai pulled a compact module from the cart and clipped it to his arm port. Its casing read Helix Governor. Cooling lines engaged. A controlled cold spread through his veins and steadied his pulse for a few seconds. Listen, Sarai said. Do not fight the restraints. Let the governor manage heat and clot risk. Callan nodded once. He had trained to obey under fire. Sarai placed the injector at the base of his neck. Her hand held steady until the last instant, when a tremor showed and vanished. She pressed the trigger. Heat poured into Callan's bloodstream. At first it was warmth. Then it surged like flame. His spine arched and the bands tightened to keep his ribs from tearing. His vision narrowed. The room became a tunnel of white light and alarm tones. Sarai snapped commands into the console. Filtration engaged. Cooling increased. Anticoagulant delivered. Metabolic dampening activated. The Helix Governor cycled coolant and waste in hard, efficient loops. Callan's heartbeat hammered. Each beat felt too strong for his injuries. He tasted metal and fear. Then the sensation changed. The pain stopped spreading. It gathered into sharp points, then moved, as if something inside him was mapping damage and choosing priorities. His breath deepened. The next inhale still hurt, but it did not collapse him. Sarai watched the blood chemistry scroll and spoke under her breath. That should not stabilize. Callan's eyes opened, clear and focused. He could hear the distant hum of dock thrusters beyond the bay. He could pick out footsteps in the corridor and the soft click of Sarai's glove on the cart rail. Sarai stared at him. Horror and relief tangled together. You are awake, she said. How long? Callan asked. Less than a minute, Sarai replied. It felt longer. Callan swallowed. Did you just make me a target? Sarai's eyes flicked to a new alert. On the wall display, the alert text was clinical, but the meaning was a death sentence. Unauthorized bioactive signature detected. Military lot engagement confirmed. The ring will flag this, she said. Security will come. Callan studied her face. For the first time, he saw anger under the calm. If they find it, what do? He asked. They do not let anomalies return home, Sarai said. They dissect possibilities. They rewrite rules after the fact. And you? Callan asked. Sarai answered without drama. I become a mistake, she said. They erase mistakes. Callan exhaled slowly. His chest still burned, but his mind felt sharper, quieter. Then we hide it, he said. Sarai hesitated, then nodded once. I can mask the base sensors for a short window, she said. Not long. Time is enough, Callan said. It always is. Sarai rerouted the bay monitors into an older diagnostic loop and set the displayed vitals inside legal margins. It was not truth. It was plausible. She slipped a small blood sample into a shielded capsule and tucked it into her coat. A low chime sounded in the corridor. Proximity. Inspection route. Sarai straightened her posture and drew the curtain aside. Do not speak unless you must, she said. Then she stepped into the open, ready to lie for his life. Warden Illerketh arrived with 2 officers and a scanner rig floating on a grav cart. The rig's lenses rotated as it entered the bay, humming with hungry precision. Keth did not bother with pleasantries. Report, he said. Sarai stood between the scanner and the bed. Pulmonary stabilization in progress, she replied. Human protocols observed. Keth's gaze flicked to the shelf. The amber case was resealed. The seal looked fresh. His eyes returned to Sarai, then to Callan. Your trend is unusually stable for a human with trauma, Keth said. Industrial filtration, Sarai replied. Better than your field kits. Keth gestured. The scanner drifted forward and washed a beam over Callan's chest, then his neck. Callan kept his face slack and his breath slow. The scanner paused. Its tone shifted, then chirped sharply and flashed an error. Signal mismatch. Biosignature out of policy range. One officer muttered a curse. Keth leaned closer. Again, he said. Sarai, move at once. Your rig is miscalibrated, she said. Doc 14 had a plasma spill. Residual interference. Keth waved an officer forward with a manual probe. Callan felt heat rise at the base of his skull. Not power. Stress. If the probe touched his neck port, the trace would read. The bay would seal. He would vanish into an investigation that never ended. Sarai stepped into the probe's path. You will contaminate this sterile field, she said. Keth's voice cooled. Step aside. Sarai held her ground. You want an incident under neutral accord council audit? She asked. A quarantine inside a trade artery? A report that says the Bureau forced a breach. Keth hesitated. Paperwork could break careers. He glanced toward the corridor camera, then back to Sarai. You are protective of a human, he said. I am protective of order, Sarai replied. Dead bodies create disorder. Keth looked at Callan. Callan met his eyes with a soldier's clarity. Not pleading, not defiant, simply awake. Keth read something there and did not like it. He stepped back half a pace. Seal this bay, he said. No transport, no visitors. Dr. NYM remains on shift. The officers complied. A locked tone sounded at the door. Keth turned to leave. At the curtain, he spoke without looking back. If this becomes a Bureau matter, you will not control the outcome. Sarai answered quietly. I already do not. When they were gone, a drone outside still hovered, patient as a spider. Sarai returned to the bed and lowered her voice. The second team will come with better equipment, she said. Soon, Callan flexed his hand. The restraint band slid a fraction. His strength felt different, not limitless, just more accessible. We do not wait, he said. Sarai shook her head. Every corridor is gated, she said. Every camera reports. Callan scanned the bay, thinking like a boarding officer. What do you have that does not report to security? He asked. Sarai hesitated, then pulled a flat mat device from beneath the cart. The label was plain, and the shape was built for quiet crimes. Veilburn jammer. It is meant to shield sensitive procedures, she said. It is also illegal. Callan let out a short breath. Then we match our situation. Sarai's console blinked with a new message, disguised as a shipping update. 3 words, followed by a price code. Aegis trace confirmed. Sarai read it once. Her comm hardened. Someone in the black networks already knows, she said. Callan felt the clinic grow smaller around them. What does it mean? He asked. Sarai's pupils tightened. That phrase is used by Vanna cartel brokers, she said. They sell bodies as data in the archive market. Callan listened to the ring hum under them. In this galaxy, secrets do not stay alone, he said. Sarai closed her hand over the jammer. Then we move, she said, before the hunters arrive. Callan Voss left Grey Bay Industrial Clinic on his own feet, but he did not feel repaired. The helix governor under his collarbone kept his temperature from spiking, and the ache in his ribs stayed sharp enough to warn him. Sarai NYM walked beside him with the Veilburn jammer hidden against her hip, her posture calm, her eyes scanning for cameras. They moved through Harkon's salvage yard, like 2 workers returning from a late shift. Sparks fell from an overhead gantry, and the air tasted of hot metal and recycled oxygen. A service tunnel led them to a maintenance alcove near an old comm relay. Sarai slid a thin patch over the collar of Callan's jacket, a dull square that blended with fabric. This will confuse casual readers, she said. It will not fool a forensic rig. Good enough for now, Callan said. He kept his shoulders loose and his steps even. Sarai touched the helix governor through his clothing. If you sprint, the governor will dump coolant and flag a pattern, she said. Walk. Breathe. Let your body look ordinary. Callan nodded once. I can fake it. Sarai tapped a panel and fed it a clinic access token. The lock hesitated, then clicked. How long until Warden Keth comes back with real scanners? Callan asked. Sarai kept her voice low. Minutes, she said. He will call it a security event. Callan knelt by the relay and pulled a thin cable from his sleeve. It was Terran issue, braided, ugly, and familiar. He plugged it into the relay port and sent a tight beam burst that would pass as routine maintenance chatter. A face resolved on the small screen, older than Callan remembered, lit by a shipboard lamp. Admiral Soren Havek did not waste time on greetings. "Voss," Havek said, "confirm you are alive." "I am alive," Callan replied. "Not clean." Havek's gaze flicked to Sarai. "Identify." "Dr. Sarai NYM," she said. "Gray Bay Industrial Clinic." Havek's eyes narrowed, then steadied. "You are not in our chain of command." "No," Sarai said, "but I'm the reason he is still breathing." Havek accepted it with a small nod. "You are the reason he is now visible to people who should never see him." Callan kept his breathing even. "My team is gone," he said. "The package is not." Havek's jaw tightened. "You were the last link in Operation Blackglass," he said. The rest of the board went dark. "If the Blackglass key leaves our control, Earth loses its seat at the table." Sarai's eyes sharpened. "Blackglass key is data?" "It is access," Havek said. "It opens shipping ledgers and hidden routing. It can turn a neutral corridor into a choke point." Callan glanced toward the tunnel mouth. "Where is it?" he asked. "Archive market," Havek said. "Vanta Cartel is moving it through a broker called Rookvale. You will intercept before transfer." Sarai frowned. "The Bureau will seal him if they confirm a military serum trace." Havek looked at her as if measuring a tool. "Then keep him stable," Havek said. "Keep him uninteresting. If the Bureau takes him, he becomes evidence. Evidence becomes confinement." Callan heard the hard part under the words. "And the second mission?" he asked. Havek's expression did not change. "After the key is secured," he said. "Two tasks, Voss. Fail the first, and the second will not matter." A soft alarm chirped in the alcove. Sarai turned her head slightly, listening beyond the metal. "They are already sweeping," she said. Havek's eyes stayed on Callan. "Move now," Havek said. "In this part of the galaxy, law is a weapon." The screen went dark. Sarai withdrew the cable and resealed the panel. "I can slow the trace," she said. "Not erase it. If you push too hard, you will overheat." Callan flexed his fingers. "Then we push smart," he said. They slipped back into the yard and followed a flow of cargo handlers toward an elevator bank that led down into the rings under deck. The archive market hid behind legitimate freight labels and tired faces that asked no questions. Callan and Sarai reached it by riding a maintenance lift down and walking a corridor that smelled of coolant and stale coffee. At the entry, a scanner arch-weighted like a mouth. Sarai paused and opened her coat just enough to reveal her medic insignia. The guard waved them through, bored and paid to stay that way. Inside, the market was a narrow hall lined with shutters and light panels. Vendors spoke in low-trade tongue, selling tools, spare parts, and sealed cases that never appeared on official manifests. A drone drifted overhead and pretended it was looking for contraband. Sarai leaned close to Callan. "If they get a fresh sample, they will not need the Bureau," she said. "I know," Callan said. He watched reflections in the metal walls. He listened for the wrong cadence of footsteps. A man stood near a stall of old NAV chips, arms folded, expression neutral. His clothes were plain. His eyes were too quick. "Rookvale." Rook looked at Sarai first, then at Callan's neck as if he could see the Helix governor under skin. His smile was polite and empty. "Dr. NYM," he said, "you are far from your bay." Sarai kept her tone clinical. "I am on my way to a consult." Rook nodded as if that explained everything. "And you brought a human," he said. "Humans are in demand tonight." Callan stepped half a pace forward. "We are here for Blackglass," he said. Rook's eyebrows lifted. "Direct," he said, "but you should understand the room. In this hall, respect costs." Rook turned slightly, as if to point out a stall. Two men broke from the crowd on Callan's left. Their movements were casual, their eyes fixed on him. A small drone rose from a vendor tray, its lens already open. Sarai spoke softly. "Do not let the drone scan." Callan moved. He closed the distance in 2 steps and slapped his palm against the drone's side, twisting it toward a light panel. The lens flared white. The drone chirped and wobbled. One of the men lunged for Callan's neck. Callan caught the wrist, turned it, and guided the arm down until the man's shoulder popped with a dry sound. The man screamed. The crowd recoiled. Sarai raised the veil-burn jammer and triggered a pulse. The nearest light panels flickered. The drone dropped, its stabilizers confused. Rook's smile vanished. You brought illegal equipment into my market, he said. You brought a trap, Callan replied. More bodies moved in the periphery. Vanna Cartel did not wear uniforms. It wore the look of people who had already decided you were property. Callan backed toward Sarai, keeping his shoulder between her and the crowd. His ribs protested, and heat built at the base of his skull. The governor cooled him, but it could not erase strain. Sarai's voice stayed steady. We leave now, she said. Rook lifted a hand, signaling restraint that did not come from mercy. Let them go, he said, not because they deserve it, because they are already marked. Callan stared at him. Where's the key? He asked. Rook shrugged. Not here, he said. It is moving to a transfer node outside the noise. Sarai's eyes narrowed. A false transfer point? Rook's grin returned, colder. A private lane, he said. Bring your human there. If he survives, perhaps you earn the right to bargain. Shouts rose as the first man hit the floor. A sampling drone snapped toward Callan's neck and fired a dart. Callan caught Sarai's wrist and pulled her down. The dart struck the wall and burst into a wet smear. The Helix governor answered with a cold pulse that made Callan's teeth ache. Sarai fired a jammer pulse, just enough to stutter the drones. Move, she said. They shoved through the crowd to a maintenance shutter behind stacked crates. Callan tore the latch open and lifted it. Cold air spilled from the crawl space. Sarai climbed first, then reached back. Callan took her hand and hauled himself into the dark. Behind them, Rook called after them, almost friendly. Kestrel Hollow, he said. Follow the lane outside the noise. Callan dropped the shutter and crawled into darkness with Sarai close behind. They found shelter in an abandoned inspection bay near a coolant line, a place too narrow for cargo movers and too dirty for supervisors to care. Sarai sealed the door with a manual latch and set the veil-burn jammer on the floor. Callan sat against a bulkhead and let himself breathe. The Helix governor pulsed again, cooling him in waves. Sweat gathered at his hairline anyway. Sarai knelt beside him and pressed 2 fingers to his neck, counting. Her touch was professional, but it lingered a fraction longer than it needed to. Your core temperature is climbing, she said. You hit it well. Callan gave a short laugh that turned into a wince. I've had worse days, he said. Sarai handed him a pouch of salts and water. Drink, she said. If you cramp, you will not recover fast enough for the next fight. Callan drank. The taste was bitter. He did it anyway. Sarai gave him a quick shot from her kit, then checked the Helix governor readout. Hours if you stay cool, she said. Less if you fight. The serum rebuilt your margins, but it did not remove physics. Callan stared at the floor plating. Havok said do not get taken, he said. If the Bureau seals me, Earth loses leverage. If the cartel takes me, they sell my blood to whoever hates my planet most. Sarai's voice softened, almost against her will. And if they take me, they erase me as a cautionary tale, she said. Callan looked up. Then we keep you alive too, he said. Sarai held his gaze. In the silence, the ring's distant machinery sounded like a slow heartbeat. You barely know me, she said. I know what you did, Callan replied. You saw a human tagged as fragile, and you refused to let a label decide his end. That choice matters. Sarai swallowed. In my world, choices like that do not survive audits, she said. Then we do not give them an audit, Callan said. A distant siren rose and fell, muffled by layers of hull. Somewhere, Vanta Cartel was arranging a corridor of traps. Sarai picked up the jammer and checked its charge. Rook offered a lane outside the noise, she said. If we go, it is a funnel. If we do not go, the key disappears. Callan stood, slow and controlled. Pain spiked in his ribs, but his legs held. We go, Callan said. But we do not go blind. Sarai nodded once. I can spoof my medic tag long enough to pass one gate, she said. After that, we are 2 fugitives in a corridor that does not exist on maps. Callan adjusted his jacket and took a short metal tool from a bay. Not a weapon by design, but heavy enough to matter. He looked at Sarai. "When this is done, I will get you off this ring," he said. Sarai did not smile. "Then move," she said, "before the galaxy notices we are still alive." They opened the bay door and stepped back into the rings under deck, following the faint hum of a route that should have been empty. The lane outside, the noise began as a lie told to sensors. Harkon Tug 9 slipped away from the Cinderline transfer ring under a freight tag that looked boring enough to ignore. A contractor at the helm kept his eyes forward and his questions to himself, because in neutral space curiosity was a liability. Callan Voss stood behind the pilot's seat, breathing shallow to spare his ribs. Dr. Sarai NYM watched the Helix governor numbers crawl and kept one hand near her kit as if she could hold the future in place by being ready. "You are warmer than you should be," Sarai said. "I'm not running," Callan replied. "Stress counts," Sarai said. "The serum burns fuel when you think it is resting." Callan flexed his fingers and felt the difference between control and excess. The cut in his thigh from the dart at the market had sealed faster than it should have, but the ache behind his eyes was new. The serum created margins, then demanded discipline as payment. The tug entered the shatter belt, and the forward view filled with drifting scrap. Panels spun end over end, and dead drones floated with their lights still blinking. The sensors painted false echoes, then corrected, then lied again, until the contractor switched to a manual overlay and trusted Rawstar fixes more than software. A rendezvous beacon appeared on the navigation display, clean and steady, as if someone had placed a lighthouse in a storm. Callan stared at it until the pattern felt wrong in his bones. In the shatter belt, clean signals were never gifts. "It is too neat," Sarai said. "It is meant to look safe," Callan replied. "That is the lure." The tug eased forward using micro-pulses that would blend with the debris. Sarai slid a thin patch onto Callan's collar, a dampening layer meant to blur the most obvious trace, then checked his pulse with 2 fingers. She did not trust the governor alone, not with hunters this close. Ahead, a cluster of cargo containers hung together under magnetic clamps. One container carried the relief mark used by neutral aid crews across the galaxy. Fresh paint hid older scars and a newer weld seam that did not match the frame. A second signal appeared, close and weak, tied to a life sign. The camera sharpened, and Callan saw an adult dock worker in a patched suit, tethered to the container frame. His helmet was cracked and taped, and his eyes were wide with the steady terror of someone who had been told exactly how he would die. A voice came over an open band, smooth as a contract. "Terran asset and the medic," the voice said. "Hold position. We are taking a sample and a log. Then you can leave." Sarai went rigid. "Vanta cartel," she said. Callan watched the darkness behind the containers. "They are not alone," he said. "Someone is managing the angle." 2 small boarding skiffs slid out of shadow, hulls dusted to mimic scrap. A third shape followed, slower and larger, holding distance like a supervisor, its antenna turning as if tasting every transmission. The voice returned. "Give us your neck port, Voss," it said. "We release the worker. Refuse, and he drifts until his oxygen runs out." Sarai leaned close, her words tight. "They will still take your blood if they catch you," she said. "I know," Callan said. He looked at the pilot. "Kill the lights," Callan said. "Keep thrust low. Use the container stack as cover." The tug slid close enough to scrape paint. Callan clipped a tether to his harness and checked the veil-burn jammer at his belt. He checked a second line coiled at his hip, meant for rescue work. Sarai caught his sleeve. "Do not turn this into a sprint," she said. "You will overheat. You will not feel it until it is too late." "Then keep my numbers in view," Callan replied. "If I go red, you tell me. If I do not answer, you pull me back." Sarai swallowed once and nodded. Callan opened the side hatch and pushed into the shatter belt. Outside, the universe went silent and hostile. Callan kept his body tight to the tug hull, moving by tether and small kicks, staying in shadow where debris glare could not outline him. One cartel skiff drifted in, nose camera sweeping, patient and close. Callan triggered a short jammer pulse. The skiff camera flared white and its stabilizers twitched. He used that half second to fire his tether anchor into the skiff frame and reel himself in. He landed hard, ribs screaming, but his hands held. He wedged his boots into a seam, pried open a service hatch with the arc frame breacher, and yanked a guidance bundle free. One cut, clean and specific, and the skiff began to rotate, blind and useless. A shout burst over his audio. Track him. Do not let him reach the container. Callan kicked off and slid along. The container cluster. Debris drifted past his visor like slow shrapnel, bright and indifferent. A net fired from the second skiff and glittered across space, filaments spreading in a wide fan. Callan rolled under it and felt the edge brush his shoulder plate. Heat surged behind his eyes, and the Helix governor pulsed cold, not enough to feel safe. Sarai's voice came through his audio, controlled but strained. Your core is rising, Sarai said. Slow down. Not yet, Callan replied. Not while he's out there. He reached the relief-marked container and latched on. The worker's tether ran to a clamp, and Callan grabbed the lock and twisted. It was taped to look crude, but the metal underneath was new, and the bolt pattern was too clean. It is staged, Callan said. Before Sarai could answer, the container door blew outward on compressed gas. Callan threw himself sideways. Fragments rang off his suit, and the worker screamed as his tether snapped and the man began to drift, spinning into the field. Callan fired his rescue line without thinking. The hook bit into the worker's suit ring, and the reel whined as it took load. The worker's spin slowed, then steadied, his breathing loud in Callan's audio. Hold on, Callan said. I'm holding, the man gasped. Please. Two operatives burst out, trained and fast. One carried a sampler injector with a shielded vial, and they aimed for Callan's neck port. They did not want his death. They wanted ownership of what kept him alive. Callan slammed into the container wall and used the recoil to pivot. He drove the breacher into the injector hand, and the vial spun away, tumbling into darkness. The second operative fired a dart that struck Callan's thigh and burned like a wire pushed into muscle. Callan tore it free and forced himself forward, ignoring the lag in his leg. His vision tightened, not from fear, from heat. He found the inner frame where the container had been modified and saw the black module strapped there, flat and matte, cover sealed by a biometric strip. Black glass key. Callan ripped the strip and pulled the module free. The moment it left the frame, his display flooded with a burst of telemetry, short clips, timestamps, and a clean tag. Vanna Cartel had been recording, and the recording was the real payload. Somewhere that clip would be packaged and sold as an invitation to bigger predators. The skiff surged and thruster burns flashed blue against scrap. Callan reeled toward the tug, dragging the worker behind him on the rescue line, and the extra mass slowed him. Heat spiked hard enough to make the edges of his vision pulse. Sarai's voice sharpened. Cut the line. Now. Callan clenched his teeth. The worker's oxygen alarm chirped at his ear, thin and desperate. Open the hatch, Callan said. Bring him in. The tug hatch opened and Sarai leaned out, one hand on the frame. She grabbed the worker's suit ring and hauled with a strength that came from refusal. The worker slammed into the hatch lip, then tumbled inside, coughing, and Sarai clipped him into an emergency air feed without looking away. Callan hit the hatch hard enough to feel bone complain. Sarai pulled him in and sealed it, then shoved the worker toward the inner deck where the air feed held steady. The tug pilot fired a hard lateral burn, and debris streaked across the camera like knives. One skiff clipped a plate fragment and spun away. The other skiffs kept coming, and the larger supervisor craft held distance, its antenna still tasting every transmission. Sarai pulsed the veil-burn jammer in short bursts, and the skiffs wobbled as their cameras flared and their ranging flickered. Callan leaned over the pilot's shoulder and pointed at a gap in the debris. Thread that slot, he said. Use the scrap as a baffle. The tug dubbed between two spinning panels, so close the hull vibrated from near impacts. A skiff tried to follow and sheared a stabilizer on a bolt fragment, tumbling end over end with thrusters flaring uselessly. The supervisor craft did not chase into the teeth. It watched, patient, like it expected someone else to finish the job. Callan's lungs burned. His hand shook. Sarai looked at the Helix Governor readout and went pale. "You are past regulation," Sarai said. "The governor cannot dump heat fast enough." Callan swallowed. "Then we change the load," he said. Sarai stared at him. "If I cut the lattice seed, you lose peak output," she said. "You will feel it every time you fight." "I would rather live tired than die bright," Callan replied. Sarai opened her kit and plugged a probe into the governor port. Pain hit Callan like his muscles were being asked to forget a new strength. He held still, jaw locked, while Sarai worked with fast, careful hands. The heat eased. His pulse dropped from a roar to a hard drum. Sarai did not look relieved. She looked marked, because a choice like this left fingerprints the galaxy could read. A new message flashed on the tug screen. It was official and cold, routed through the Cinderline Security Bureau. Sarai's medical credential was flagged. Her procurement rights suspended. Her identity annotated for detainment. Callan's transit status was marked for containment. "They're not chasing us," Callan said. "They're filing us." Another channel opened, clean and private. A woman's voice spoke with calm authority. "Meridian Directorate," the voice said. "Director Maven Strix authorizes closure of the anomaly file. Present the human and the medic for transfer." Sarai went rigid. "Meridian is above this," she whispered. "They are above nothing," Callan replied. "They just write better paperwork." The voice continued. "Non-compliance will revoke medical access across the galaxy. Docking rights rescinded. Identity annotated as actionable risk." The tug pilot pointed at the navigation display. Allowed routes collapsed into one corridor, narrow and bright, a path that looked like rescue and felt like a funnel. Behind them, Vanta Cartel kept pace, while Meridian tightened a net made of rules. Callan looked at Sarai. "They can erase you without firing," he said. Sarai met his eyes. "Then we do not hand them the eraser," she said. Callan turned to the pilot. "Take the corridor," he said. "We fight where they force us." The tug surged into the lane, debris flashing past like teeth. Kestrel Hollow appeared as a dark rock city wrapped in ion haze, lights hidden behind shielding and secrecy. The tug docked at a private clamp that never existed on public manifests. The moment the clamp engaged, the tug systems locked as if the station had been waiting. The worker Sarai had hauled in was alive, breathing on an emergency feed. His eyes stared at nothing, the way people stared when they had seen the price of being used. Sarai tried her medic credential. The panel rejected it. She tried again with a different protocol, and it rejected her again, fast and final. "In this galaxy, medicine is permission," Sarai said quietly. "They took my permission." Callan sat on the deck with his back against a crate. The cut Sarai made in. The lattice seed had dulled his edge, and the easy surplus was gone. Exhaustion settled into him like a weight, and his ribs felt real again. Sarai handed him water and salts. "You will crash later," Sarai said. "The serum gives, then it demands repayment. If you push, your immune system can turn on you, and it will not look heroic." Callan drank and stared at the black glass key in his palm. "Earth wanted this to keep a seed," he said. "Now it is also a reason to delete you." Sarai did not flinch. "They can lock me out of every clinic gate in the galaxy," she said. "I cannot even buy sterile bandage without a system nod. If you get wounded, I may not have legal access to medicine." "Then we do not rely on legal," Callan said. Sarai's mouth tightened. "Illegal has a cost too," she replied. Callan glanced toward the worker, then back. "You chose a person over a label," he said. "That is what made you dangerous to them." Sarai held his gaze. For a moment, the hard calm fell away, and something like grief passed through her eyes, then returned as decision. "If we continue, there is no return to my old life," Sarai said. "There is no return for me either," Callan replied. "Not after Meridian stamped my name." A communications light blinked on the tug console. Callan pushed himself up and opened the channel. Admiral Soren Havek appeared, face set like stone. "Report," Havek said. "Black glass is secured," Callan replied. "Vanta Cartel is still on our tail." Meridian issued a closure order. Sarai is flagged across medical systems. We pulled an adult worker out of the trap. He is alive. Havok's eyes narrowed. Meridian moved early, he said. That means the next step is already in motion. What is the second mission? Callan asked. Havok's voice lowered. Farpoint relay node is under threat, he said. Meridian is positioning a kinetic option called Stonefall Rod. If it drops, it will not just kill a target. It will rewrite the map and force worlds to choose sides. Sarai's hand found Callan's sleeve, a small steadying touch. Callan kept his voice even. When do we move? Callan asked. Now Havok said, the window is short. You will not have time to recover. Callan glanced at Sarai. Then we go together, he said. Havok held his gaze. If you bring her, you own that decision, he said. Callan did not hesitate. I already do, he replied. The channel cut. Outside the hull, Kestrel Hollow kept its lights dim and its gates closed. Beyond it, Farpoint relay node waited, and time was already running out. The order from Admiral Soren Havok did not sound like hope. It sounded like a deadline. Kestrel Hollow kept its lights dim and its docks private. Even there, Callan Voss could feel Meridian Directorate tightening the galaxy with paperwork and forced corridors. Dr. Sarai NYM worked from a crate, not a clinic. Her credentials were locked across the galaxy, but her discipline was not. She taped a temperature patch over the Helix Governor's seam and shoved electrolyte packets into Callan's pocket. You will not get to recover, Sarai said. You will only get to manage heat. Callan tested a slow breath and felt the lattice cut inside him like a missing stair. The serum still gave him margin, but it demanded restraint as payment. Sarai had only so much coolant and so many salts, and the galaxy had no sympathy for shortages. Havok brought them a cutter with a quiet hull and Terran encryption under a dull freight tag. The pilot stayed silent. The cargo bay smelled of oil and old straps. On the comm screen, Havok looked worn and sharp. Farpoint relay node is entering a scheduled maintenance blackout, he said. Meridian will use that window to blind the lattice and stage a kinetic strike package called Stonefall Rod. Callan kept his voice steady. They drop it, then they erase the authorization, he said. They erase the authorization first, Havok replied. Neutral Accord Council will see a clean chain or no chain. If the relay timing file and the routing log vanish together, every investigator in the galaxy will shrug and move on. Sarai held her kit like a shield. If we stop the relay takeover, the rod fails? She asked. It becomes inaccurate, Havok said. Inaccurate still kills. Your real target is their timing and their control chain, not the rod itself. Callan nodded once. We do not outgun Meridian, he said. We cut the hand that writes the order. Havok's eyes flicked to Sarai. Stay with him, and you become a target that cannot buy medicine, he said. I already am, Sarai replied. The channel closed. The cutter slipped away from Kestrel Hollow, and the station shrank behind them like a secret. Farpoint relay node hung between quiet stars like a metal spine. Antenna farms and radiator blades wrapped its outer ring, and every surface looked built to serve the galaxy, not forgive it. Meridian loved places like this because control could look like maintenance. A short time later, the cutter drifted along a traffic lane behind coolant tankers, using their signatures as cover. Sarai rebuilt her identity into a quarantine role that fit neutral law. She carried a case of sterile seals, caution tape, and a diagnostic tablet that could display believable contamination flags. Callan carried the black glass key close to his body. It was not only access, it was motive. If Meridian owned it, they could steer freight in starve stations and call a correction. They requested docking in a service bay used for coolant exchange. The air smelled like disinfectant laid over rust. A security officer met them at the ramp, visor down, and his wrist badge carried the Neutral Accord seal. State purpose? The officer asked. Containment check, Sarai replied. Possible contamination in an auxiliary coolant line. We require temporary isolation of 3 maintenance corridors. The officer scanned her packet, hesitated, then waved them through. Nobody wanted contamination on record during a blackout. The cutter pilot backed out the moment the ramp cleared. They moved along a maintenance corridor of pressure doors and camera eyes. Sarai walked like she belonged there, calm and clinical. Callan walked like he was the shadow of her authority. At a checkpoint, a gate scanner swept them and lingered on Callan a fraction too long. Sarai placed a sterile seal across the scanner housing and spoke evenly. Your sensor is inside a potential contamination zone, Sarai said. Do you want her name on the log? The guard stepped back and waved them through. As they passed, a second guard leaned in, voice low and transactional. If you need a clean corridor, I can escort, he murmured. No questions, no record. Just credit. Sarai did not slow. If you want to live, you did not speak to us, she said. Behind them, the guard laughed softly, and Callan heard the edge in it. Meridian did not need loyal people. Meridian only needed enough people willing to sell silence. A schedule banner on a wall console warned the blackout would begin in a few minutes. Callan felt time tighten, not dramatic, administrative. Sarai touched his sleeve at a corridor split. Meridian will stage the takeover through a security hub on the audit side, she said. They will rewrite the relay timing file inside the blackout. Callan glanced at the door markings. We need them to look away, he said. Sarai met his eyes. You mean your trace, she said. Callan nodded. They want the anomaly and the log, he said. We give them the scent. While they chase it, we step into the hub and cut the chain. Sarai pulled quarantine tape from her case. I can build a legal corridor for 5 minutes, she said. After that, every door becomes a wall. Callan flexed his fingers. 5 minutes is enough, he said. Callan peeled back the dampening layer Sarai had placed. The bio trace from the Helix governor and the serum bloomed on local readers like a flare. He stepped close to a sensor mast and let it taste him. An alert chirped. Corridor lights shifted from blue to amber. Sarai opened her case under the cameras and began a containment routine. Sterile seals, caution tape, and a checklist on her tablet, all slow hands and professional posture. Footsteps arrived fast and controlled. A Meridian team rounded the corner with smooth armor and no insignia. Their leader held a tablet, and his eyes went straight to Callan. Containment order is active, the leader said. Submit for sampling. Sarai stepped between them. This is a quarantine scene, she said. You are contaminating it. Dr. Sarai NYM is flagged, the leader replied. Your access is revoked. Callan kept his hands visible and watched their gear. Net launcher. Sample injector. Restraint cuffs with biometric tags. They did not want him dead. They wanted him owned and filed. Sarai's voice dropped. Your core is rising, she warned. I know, Callan said. Do it. Sarai pulsed the Veilburn jammer just high enough to make the leader's tablet stutter. Callan moved in that half second, drove his shoulder into the leader, pinned the injector arm, and twisted until the injector snapped loose and clattered away. Heat surged through Callan's chest. The Helix governor dumped coolant cold enough to sting. He forced his breath to stay slow. The Meridian team recovered fast. A net fired and caught Callan across the torso, driving him to the deck. Sarai cut the net line with a sterile cutter and hauled him up. They ran into the restricted audit corridor, not because it was safe, but because Meridian would assume it was theirs. The door accepted Sarai's packet and seal behind them. The maintenance blackout began. Lights fell to emergency glow. Cameras shifted to low power. Farpoint felt less like a station and more like a throat closing. Sarai's tablet blinked with an injected request. Director Maven Strix requested contact. The hollow formed, calm and compressed. Strix looked like someone who could close a file and sleep afterward. Callan Voss, Strix said, Dr. Sarai NYM. You are inconveniencing the galaxy. You are about to drop Stonefall Rod, Callan said. The galaxy requires correction, Strix replied. Freight must flow. Sarai's jaw set. You will kill civilians, she said. You will call them collateral, Strix said. The record will agree. Strix's eyes flicked to Callan's jacket where the black glass key pressed. Surrender the human and the key, she said. Dr. NYM receives protected transport to Earth under Meridian conditions. Refuse, and Earth loses Farpoint. Then Earth loses its voice. Sarai breathed out, controlled. Elish, she said. Callan held Strix's gaze. Earth will not accept your conditions, he said. Earth will accept proof. Strix's voice stayed even. Then you have minutes, she said. Deliver, or be erased. The hollow collapsed into static. Sarai checked Callan's patch and did not hide the fear in her eyes. Your temperature is climbing again, she said. Callan forced a slow nod. We have leverage and we have a choke point, he said. Now I need my commander to pay the diplomatic cost. He opened the Terran channel on his wrist unit and pushed Havek's priority code through Farpoint's thinning network. The response came after a breath, grainy but present. Havek's face filled the small screen. Talk, he said. Meridian offered Sarai protected transport to Earth under Meridian conditions, Callan said. I want Earth conditions. I want a protected status signed by Terran Strategic Command. If I cut the chain at Farpoint, you will not trade her away afterward. Do you agree? Havek stared, and the silence was the sound of a war being priced. You are asking me to shelter a foreign medic flagged across the galaxy, he said. Without her, Black Glass is already in Meridian hands, Callan replied. Sarai stood still, watching. Havek exhaled. Complete the mission, he said. Bring her to New Cascadia Spaceport. I will sign the protection order myself. On record. The channel cut. Sarai's shoulders sagged for a second, then steadied. After this, I cannot go back, Sarai said. After this, you do not need to, Callan replied. We strike the choke point and we leave together. Sarai nodded once. Then we cut the chain, she said. One clean cut. Callan tucked the Black Glass key close and moved deeper into the audit corridor, toward the relay spine Meridian thought it owned. Farpoint relay node felt different during blackout. The station did not go silent. It went careful. Every system that stayed awake sounded like it was holding its breath. Callan Voss and Dr. Sarai, NYM, moved through the audit corridor where Meridian expected obedience. Emergency lights painted the walls in thin amber bands, and the air tasted faintly of ozone from overloaded power rails. Callan kept one palm near the Veilburn jammer and the other close to the Black Glass key. Sarai walked ahead, steady and precise, like fear was just another symptom to triumph. The Helix governor under Callan's collarbone pulsed cold in short cycles. It kept him functional, not invincible. A door ahead showed a maintenance seal and a clean authorization token. Sarai pressed her tablet to the reader and watched it hesitate. The station tried to reject her, then accepted a narrow path, the kind you get when someone wants you to enter a trap. They want us inside the spine, Callan said. Sarai nodded once. Then we take what we need before it closes, she said. They stepped into the relay spine access hall. The walls were sensor skin, smooth and reflective enough to show them as two dark figures moving across a living grid. A soft tone followed each step, not an alarm, a record. A Meridian team appeared at the far end, armor mat, faces hidden. They did not shout. They raised restraint launchers and sample kits like this was a clinical procedure. Callan raised his hands, slow. We are here to prevent a disaster, he said. A leader stepped forward. Submit for transfer, the leader replied. The anomaly file is being closed. Sarai spoke before Callan could. Stonefall Rod cannot be guided without relay timing integrity, she said. If you corrupt Farpoint, you will make it uncontrolled. The leader did not blink. Control violence is still control, the leader said. Callan triggered the Veilburn jammer in a tight pulse. The corridor lights flickered, cameras stuttered, and the sensor skin lost frame lock for a heartbeat. Callan moved in that gap, low and fast, a boarding officer in a narrow tube. He drove into the leader, pinned the launcher arm, and twisted until the mechanism jammed. A second Meridian operator fired a net. Callan turned his shoulder, caught the edge, and used the wall to rip it loose before it wrapped his neck port. Sarai ran to a side panel and pressed the Black Glass key into a hidden slot. The lock recognized the key like it recognized shame. A diagnostic screen bloomed with routing ledgers, relay timing tables, and a chain of custody that Meridian had tried to scrub. Sarai's fingers flew across the interface. I can see the spoof, she said. They inserted a clean maintenance order into neutral authority. Callan kept his back to her, tracking angles and footsteps. His ribs burned with each breath, and his core temperature rose, slow but relentless. The helix governor cooled him, and he forced his mind to stay calm so his body would not spike. Another Meridian operator rushed Sarai with a shock baton. Callan intercepted and drove the operator into the wall, not to kill, to stop. The baton clattered away. Sarai did not look up. Stonefall rod is cued, Sarai said. It needs farpoint to confirm timing for the release arc. If I break the confirmation chain, the rod should trigger fail-safe. Should? Callan asked. Sarai swallowed. Fail-safes exist because the galaxy hates unpredictable mass, she said. Meridian will have bypassed what they can. Not everything. A hollow shimmered on the wall, crisp despite blackout. Director Maven Strix appeared in calm grayscale, like she had never been short on bandwidth. Her eyes went to Sarai, then to Callan, then to the black glass key interface. You were late, Strix said. You had a chance to surrender cleanly. Callan kept his voice level. You had a chance to stop, he replied. Strix tilted her head. Earth wants a seat, she said. Meridian manages the room. Seats are granted by stability. Sarai tapped a command, and the screen flashed a warning about checksum mismatch. She injected a new checksum set, built from black glass authentication, then locked the relay timing table behind a quarantine-style seal that looked official enough to delay human doubt. Strix watched, expression unchanged. Dr. NYM has no legal access, she said. Sarai answered without looking up. Legal is what you edit, she said. I am using your own handwriting. Strix's gaze hardened by a fraction. Terminate them, she said. From behind, a set of doors opened with soft precision. More Meridian arrived, moving with the quiet confidence of people protected by policy. Callan felt his chest tighten, not fear math. He triggered the jammer again, shorter, weaker. The device was heating, and his body was too. He could not win by speed. He could only win by timing. Sarai now, Callan said. Sarai reached deeper into the system and pulled the queued command chain into view. It was a set of signed tokens, each one pretending to be neutral maintenance, each one leading to a release confirmation. Sarai copied the chain, then sent it outward through a relay buffer, not to a single channel, but to every oversight route she could find. Neutral Accord Council Audit Queue. Cinderline Security Bureau Incident Records. Terran Strategic Command Priority Inbox. Farpoint Local Maintenance Log. The station tried to reject it. Blackout throttled bandwidth. Sarai used the black glass key to mark the packet as freight safety and emergency integrity. The system could ignore politics. It could not ignore liability. An alert bloomed on the wall. Release confirmation invalid. Guidance handshake failed. Fail-safe armed. Far out in silent space, Stonefall rod looked like a slab of dense metal wrapped in thrusters and sensors, waiting for the galaxy to point it at target. Without farpoint timing, its guidance could not guarantee a controlled arc. The rod system chose the one thing it was built to do when it could not be sure. It aborted. Cold gas fired from side jets. The rod rotated, reoriented to a disposal vector, and burned for deep space on minimal thrust. It would not strike a station. It would not strike a world. It would become expensive trash in the dark. Strix's hollow remained calm. You just forced a public record, she said. You do not understand what you bought. I bought time, Callan said. Meridian operators lunged. Callan moved to block, but his vision pulsed at the edges. Heat climbed faster now. The helix governor dumped coolant, and his teeth ached from the cold. Sarai stepped in front of the interface and slapped a manual seal across the panel. It was an old trick, the kind used in industrial clinics when systems misbehaved. Physical obstruction, tamper flag, paper trail. Sirens rose, not Meridian sirens. Neutral sirens. A farpoint security channel opened. Neutral Accord Council Authority stamped the feed. All Meridian personnel stand down, a voice ordered. Relay integrity event is under council investigation. Any interference will be treated as sabotage. The Meridian team paused, just long enough to calculate risk. Strix's hollow flickered, then steadied, then vanished. She did not say goodbye. Callan let out one controlled breath and felt his legs threaten to fold. Sarai caught his arm hard. "Move," she said. "The corridor will fill." They backed away from the interface as neutral security rushed in from both ends. Meridian did not fight them. Meridian withdrew because sometimes retreat was the cleanest kind of control. Callan and Sarai reached a maintenance alcove with a sealed door and a vent that hummed cold air. Callan sat on the deck and tried to make breathing look ordinary. It was not. Sarai pressed her fingers to his neck and counted. Her expression tightened with each beat. "Your heart is too fast," Sarai said. Callan tried to smile and failed. "I'm still here," he said. "Still here is not stable," Sarai replied. She opened her kit, limited and improvised, then injected a small dose meant to blunt the worst of an immune flare. The serum in Callan's body had been forced to work too long, and it responded the way biology always did when pushed. It got angry. Callan's hands trembled. Sweat gathered along his hairline and ran down his temple. The helix governor pulsed cold again, then paused, then pulsed again like it was fighting its own limits. Sarai fed him water and salts and kept her voice low. "You will carry this," she said. "The lattice cut saved you, but it also reduced your ceiling. Push hard enough and you will crash." Not once. Again and again. Callan swallowed. "So I live smaller?" he asked. "You live longer," Sarai replied. Outside the alcove, voices echoed in the corridor. Neutral security moved fast, and their boots did not sound like Meridian. The station felt less like a trap now and more like a courtroom. A calm ping sounded on Callan's wrist unit. Admiral Soren Havek appeared, face lit by shipboard light. He looked like a man who had just watched a war avoid ignition by a narrow margin. "Stonefall rod is off vector," Havek said. "Council channels receive the chain. Meridian cannot deny the signatures." "They will try," Callan replied. "They will try and they will lose time," Havek said. "That is what you bought." Sarai leaned into frame. "My credentials are still locked," she said. "They can star me of access and call it law." Havek's expression did not soften, but it did change. "Protection order is signed," he said. "Dr. Sarai NYM is under Terran Strategic Command shelter status. Any attempt to seize her on Terran soil becomes an act against Earth." Callan closed his eyes for a second. He did not let himself feel relief yet. Relief made people sloppy. Havek continued. "Neutral Accord Council is demanding Meridian withdrawal from Farpoint administrative functions," he said. "Director Maven Strix will deny involvement, but her chain is in the record. We will use that record." Callan nodded. "Then let the galaxy read it," he said. Havek studied him. "You are not a weapon, Voss," he said. "Do not let them write you that way." Callan looked at the floor plating and chose his words like he chose angles in a corridor. "Tell the council this," he said. "Humans are not fragile because we do not break. Humans are dangerous because we choose not to break other people to prove it." Havek held his gaze. "Understood," he said. The channel closed. Sarai sat back on her heels. For the first time since Grey Bay, she let herself look tired. "You put my name into their record," Sarai said. "I put your name into ours," Callan replied. "You saved me before I could earn it." Sarai stared at him for a long beat, then nodded once, as if accepting a fact that could not be argued with. "Extraction window is short," Sarai said. "Can you stand?" Callan tested his legs and felt a tremor. He stood anyway. "I can move," he said. "Not fast." "Slow is fine," Sarai replied. "Slow survives." They left the alcove and walked through Farpoint corridors, now crowded with neutral uniforms. Meridian faces were gone. The trap had changed owners. New Cascadia Spaceport did not look like a triumph. It looked like a working port under heavy weather, bright lights, strict lanes, and security that did not pretend it was optional. Earth did not celebrate victories that almost became disasters. It documented them. Callan and Sarai stepped off a Terran shuttle into a private intake corridor. A medical officer met them with a tablet and a calm voice. "Callan Voss," the officer said. "Dr. Sarai NYM. You're under protective processing. You will be monitored. You will be fed. You will not be handed over." Sarai held herself still, eyes scanning for hidden traps. Under whose authority? She asked. Terran Strategic Command, the officer replied. Signed by Admiral Soren Havek. Logged with civilian oversight. Sarai let out a breath she had been holding for too long. It was not peace. It was a new kind of cage, but it was a cage with rules she could read. Callan sat in a clinic room that smelled clean and familiar in a way alien stations never did. The Helix governor was checked, cooled, and updated with a stable regimen. The doctor spoke in plain terms, no theater. You will need salts, cooling cycles, and rest, the doctor said. If you ignore the schedule, your immune system may turn on you. It will not look dramatic. It will look like organ stress and slow failure. Callan nodded. I will follow it, he said. Sarai watched from the doorway, her hands clasped behind her back like someone trying to remember how to be off duty. When the doctor left, she stepped inside and stood near the bed. I can work again, Sarai said. Not in the galaxy, not legally, but here. Under your laws. Callan studied her face. The silver sheen of her skin caught the clinic light like quiet metal. She looked less like a myth now and more like what she had always been. A person who made a choice under pressure and paid for it with her old life. You will be watched, Callan said. I was watched before, Sarai replied. At least here, the watchers have names. Callan let out a slow breath. Outside the clinic window, port cranes moved. Ships departed. The world did not pause for anyone. Earth will be louder in the council now, Sarai said. Earth will be listened to, Callan replied. That is different. Sarai stepped closer, careful, as if space between them was still a corridor full of sensors. She reached out and placed her hand over his, light and steady. We did not get a fairy ending, Sarai said. No, Callan replied. We got a real one. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the soft hum of Earth systems doing their work. In the distance, the galaxy continued to bargain and threaten and write laws like weapons. Here, two people chose to live with consequences and still call a future. In the end, the galaxy did not change because someone begged it to. It changed because two people refused to become paperwork. A soldier learned the cost of strength. A doctor learned the cost of doing the right thing. And Earth learned something even bigger. If anyone tries to turn humans into experiments again, the answer will not be silence. If you enjoyed this kind of hard, grounded science fiction, hit like. Share it so more people find the story. And subscribe for the next episode, because the war for the lanes is not over. It is just getting smarter.